Hello and welcome to Niche References, where I yap about my niche interests so that I don't annoy my friends and family with them. My name is Chris, and today I'm going to be yapping about characters from the Nancy Drew games. The title does say best and worst, but that's just a snappier wording. Really, these are just my favorite and least favorite characters in the games. Many other creators have already analyzed these characters and discussed them more objectively, and let's be honest, I just love yapping about my opinions, so I will continue to reiterate how subjective this list is going through, because I think that in many instances, my least favorites are actually well-written characters that I just personally dislike, and vice versa for my favorite characters. Just like I did with the puzzles from the Nancy Drew games several months ago, I'm going to be going through the games chronologically and naming my favorite and least favorite character from each game. For each of these games, I'm going to mostly limit myself to in-game, fully modeled characters. However, for a couple of outlier games, I have allowed myself to choose particularly memorable phone contacts when I just don't have strong opinions on the rest of the cast. Obviously, up front, big spoiler warning for every game in the series. Some of the characters discussed here are the culprits of their games, and it's essential to mention that for many of them in order to discuss them. I'll give you ample time to skip certain games if you need to, but I have to give that warning up front. Alright, let's jump right into the characters with Secrets Can Kill Remastered. Per usual, we're talking about the remastered version since that's the one I've personally played. I'm pretty mid on all the characters in this game, but I think I have to go with Hal Tanaka for my favorite. In the original version of the game, I think Connie would actually be my favorite character. I love a woman inserting herself into a male-dominated space and beating them at their own game, and she's also iconic for coming to Nancy's rescue and saving the day at the end of the game. But in the remaster, she's kind of just reduced to being hall monitor, so I think because of that, Hal beats her out in the remaster for me because I think he's a very sympathetic character. My least favorite character is Detective Beach. I mean, literally all he does is sit around in the diner and tell me to find the journal. The entire game, that's all he does. That said, Hulk gets lucky here because I deeply hate a stereotypical jock and that's all he is, and if Detective Beach were not here in the remaster, Hulk would be my least favorite. The cast of Stay Tuned for Danger is fine. You really interact with each of them only one or two times, so it's difficult to have strong opinions on many of them. Honestly, hot take, I think my favorite character is Lillian. She's just a snarky boss lady, and I love that. My least favorite character is Rick. He's a creep who only knows how to interact via flirting and hits on teenagers. Ew. This is definitely a case where I think he's a very well-written character. He is written to be hated, and I do hate him. Message in a Haunted Mansion has an alright cast of characters. I don't think I would love her in real life, but in-game, I love Abby. She's giving me the most bang for my buck here. Fake hauntings and seances are my favorite, and she's there to provide. And I respect the hustle. Honorable mention to Charlie living in the walls, because that is absolutely unhinged of him. Unfortunately, my least favorite character here has to be Rose. She's one of the many characters in the series who have been reduced to the role of a chorebot, and she's also super unhelpful. Also, she doesn't care about my sleuthing at all. Like, oh, hey Rose, I just found this attic full of historical artifacts. Isn't that cool? Oh, you don't care? And you want me to go fix the dumbwaiter? Sure, I guess. Rude. Treasure in the Royal Tower is so tough because I think it still has one of the strongest casts overall and two top-tier characters in Hotchkiss and Dexter. That said, I do think I have to go with Hotchkiss as my favorite character. She's just so silly and iconic, and as much as I really like Dexter and I think he has more depth of backstory, he's just not as fun to interact with, nor as integral to the mystery itself. I mean, he's not the one requesting 50 chicken drumsticks here. And that's icon behavior. The obvious pick for least favorite is Lisa. I don't think anyone disagrees with this. That said, she's come around to being so bad she's good for me. I find her hilarious now, especially her spicy villain venom, whatever it's called. That is something straight out of Scooby-Doo if I've ever seen it, and I love that. It's so funny to me. On to the final scene. Truly a top 5 cast of characters in the entire series. Absolutely iconic. Even then, my favorite is really easy, and that is my king, Nicholas Falcone. Listen, this is my type of toxic man. I love him. Fight the power. Honorable mention though to Simone for how diabolical that woman is. I love to hate her so much. Least favorite is very hard here because Joseph and Brady are both deceptively interesting and complex characters. I think that in the end, I do have to go with Joseph. I just don't love the caring old man shtick. I'd much rather have the arrogant film star shtick. I'm very torn on my favorite character for Secret of the Scarlet Hand. Henrik falling down the stairs of the pyramid is pure comedy, one of the funniest things that's ever happened in this series. But honestly, I think I have to choose Alejandro here because bro was so right. He was spitting facts long before any of us cared to listen. Like, actually, yeah, please return all of the stolen artifacts to the cultures they belong to. Please and thank you. My least favorite character here is Joanna, purely because of the number of times I went to that woman and asked her a question and she would just say, I don't know, or tell me that it was something to ask Henrik. Girl, you're the head curator of the museum. How do you not know? So frustrating and unhelpful. Ghost Dogs of Moonlake is the first game where I'm going rogue. I really dislike all 3 of the fully modeled characters in this game, so I'm choosing our iconic phone character, Vivian. She gives us so much of the lore and history that makes up the backbone of the story itself, and she's actually pleasant to talk to, which is a rarity in this game. My least favorite character is Red. I have zero patience for his sexism, and I do not tolerate microaggressive pet names from creepy men. Need I say more? For the Haunted Carousel, I really thought Elliot would be my favorite, but I almost never talk to him in any playthrough of this game. Instead, I think I have to choose Harlan. I feel so bad every single time I'm forced to snitch on him because bro did not deserve that betrayal. And the fact that you do that and he comes back at you with the iconic one-liner, my back's kinda sore, probably because someone just got done stabbing me there. Iconic. Apologies for my bad Harlan impression, that's the best I could do. My least favorite character here has to be Joy. I think this explains a lot about why I'm a Haunted Carousel hater, because I just cannot get invested in her story at all because she refuses to help herself. Harlan was not kidding when he said that Joy was joyless. For Danger on Deception Island, I'm going rogue again. My favorite character is Hilda. I don't like any of the tasks she gives me, but she's truly one of the only interesting parts of the game for me in a sea of characters that I just feel total apathy toward. As far as my least favorite character, I truly don't care about any of these people. But I guess I'll say Andy as my least favorite. Sorry, bro, I don't like your museum. Whales rule, I guess. Secret of Shadow Ranch has a very strong cast, so it's hard to choose a favorite, and I'm really tempted to choose Shorty just for the here's Shorty. But in my heart, I know I have to go with Tex. I'm not a Dave girly, and as much as Shorty's entertaining, Tex is just my favorite. He's a secret softie and fed up with the idiots around him, and I relate to that. Also, his sarcastic Yahoo goodbye line gets me every time. It's so funny, and I don't even know if it's supposed to be on purpose, but I find it hilarious. Unfortunately, my least favorite character in the game is his girlfriend, Mary Yazzie. She's just at a disadvantage here, being so disconnected from the other characters and therefore only tangentially being related to the mystery. Also, she makes me go on a fetch quest for arrowheads, which is rude and annoying. How dare you? My favorite character in Curse of Blackmore Manor is Ethel. Of course it's Ethel. She's a human jump scare and she's super creepy. So much fun. Honorable mention to Nigel though, because for some reason he always reminds me of John Oliver's character from Community. I don't fully know why. Maybe they just look alike, but they don't really. I don't know. My least favorite character, I want to say Lulu because she's annoying and she makes me do annoying tasks and I hate birds. But I have so much fun killing her. So instead, I think I have to choose Mrs. Drake. She's a bit pointless as a character, and she has a stick up her butt, and kicks me out when I do the tiniest thing, like banging on her door in the middle of the night and screaming at her. I was just having a little fun. Honestly, if anyone's being uncouth here, it's Mrs. Drake for having a giant carnivorous plant that eats Nancy whole. Ironically, my favorite character in Secret of the Old Clock is the character I would most certainly hate the most in real life, and that's Richard Topham. This game does not have much going for it in the way of characters. All of them are so bland, and he at least has some level of interest as a con man creating this fake spiritualist cult of followers or students. My least favorite character here is actually Emily. Yes, the person we are supposed to be helping. I'm sorry, but she's just a wet rag of a human being. And on a very random, petty point, something that bothers me every time I play this game is in the opening conversation you have with her, the way that she repeatedly says, "Jane, my guardian," and "my guardian, Jane," over and over ad nauseum makes me want to smash my head into a wall. I get it, she's your guardian and her name is Jane. You don't have to tell me 10 times. Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon, my beloved. This game has such a stacked cast, and they're all kinda on even footing, so this is very hard. As much as I love Fatima, I think my favorite character has to be Tino Balducci, or Balducci. Tino Balducci. He's a love to hate him kind of guy, and I do really, really love to hate him. He is so entertaining. John Gray in this one is a character I wanted so badly to love. I like his character design. I love a silly little ghost hunter, but he kind of has nothing to do for most of the game, and that really sucks. Despite all the characters here being good, unfortunately, I think I do have to name Charlena as my least favorite. I think it comes down to the fact that she's simply the most obnoxious to talk to for me. In my heart of hearts, I think I know that John is objectively the weakest character in the cast, but I like him enough that I don't have the heart to name him as my least favorite, so I'm not going to. Danger by Design. I really don't have strong opinions on these characters. I guess my favorite is Heather. There aren't even really any good phone character alternatives either. But she does, if you're nice to her, choose you as a model. So that's cool. Sure, Heather. My least favorite character has to be JJ Ling, I think. She's mostly just a nuisance for no reason. I'm sorry I can't elaborate on this game too much, but the devs really spread them too thin with all the characters in this game, and that will be a common theme the further we get into the series and the more 5-character games they make. For Creature of Kabu Cave, I can't even choose Frank and Joe as my favorite characters because they were ruined in this one too. I think I have to just go with Malachi because at least he has something interesting going on, even if it is just growling like a creature and destroying a camp. As for my least favorite character, listen, I know that just a few games ago, I chose a known con artist and scammer as my favorite character, but at least that time I didn't have to buy into his cult like I do with Big Island Mike's Big Island Scam. I know he's a meme, but Big Island Mike is my least favorite character here. Most of my least favorite tasks in this game are as a result in me having to participate in his scammy business, and I hate that. Moving on to White Wolf. Remember what I said about toxic men in the final scene? Yeah, I'm choosing Lou as my favorite character in this game. And listen, it's a very weak choice. So weak. This is another game where truly none of the characters are that compelling to me. So I guess I'm choosing Lou. My least favorite character is Yanni, mostly because I think that he's a really flimsy culprit. You have like one conversation with him the entire game, and it's not even actually necessary, I think. And his entire backstory and crime are just bizarre, nonsensical. Legend of the Crystal Skull. I feel like I don't need to explain why Henry is my favorite character here. See previous discussions about Nick Falcone and Lou Talbot. Shout out to my boy Lamont though, because I find him very endearing, and if he played a slightly larger role in the game, I'd probably be naming him here. My least favorite character here is Dr. Buford. I need a spray bottle for this man. Stop creeping on teen girls. You are on death's door. Phantom of Venice. I once again have to choose a favorite and least favorite character for a game where I don't have strong opinions on a single character. My favorite, I guess, is Enrico Tazza, because I get to put on a silly little outfit and play Scopo with him. And that is this game's one redeeming factor for me. My least favorite character is Fango, because I hate re-breaking into his office, and the puzzles in there are diabolical. Now on to Haunting of Castle Malloy. Please don't make me explain why my favorite character is Kit. I really don't need to retread that ground. Also, unpopular opinion, I find Matt endearing when we finally find him. I think everyone hates that man for some reason, and I think he's fine. My least favorite character is more difficult because this is honestly just not a strong character game in general. Even choosing Kit as my favorite character is not a particularly strong opinion that I have. Part of me wants to say Donal because he seemingly is kind of a walking Irish stereotype, which I don't totally love, but at least he gives the game some sense of character, while Kyler literally just sits in a room and doesn't move or help at all, and continues to claim that this is all a prank, which is both unhelpful and annoying. Actually, the more I talk about it, Kyler's my least favorite character, for the above reasons. Characters in Ransom of the Seven Ships? This game doesn't have those. And I can't even name George as my favorite character because this game ruined George. Nancy Drew. My favorite character in Ransom of the Seven Ships is Nancy Drew. I choose to speak no further. My least favorite character in Ransom of the Seven Ships is, of course, Dwayne Power's racist blackface Jamaican stereotype that he created. I feel like I don't need to explain any further. Moving on to Warnings at Waverly Academy, which, unlike the previous game, has an absolutely stacked cast. But choosing a favorite is still incredibly easy. Mel is my queen, possibly my favorite character in this entire series, and she was everything I wanted to be in high school. I was also both academic and wannabe edgy in high school, and I was in orchestra, so she speaks directly to my cold, dark soul, and I love how deadpan she is. I love her deeply. Unfortunately, it's also easy for me to pick a least favorite here. Our cast is excellent, but I do think that Leela is the most disposable. I think she has the least interesting plot of the cast, and she also forces me to play glitchy air hockey with her, which is criminal behavior. Straight to jail. But she is absolutely nowhere near the worst character I've named here, and she's also probably my favorite among my least favorite characters that I've mentioned. I wish I liked the characters in Trail of the Twister more than I actually do. I think that they all just suffer from being a bit undercooked, which is often the case in a game like this one where they've chosen to create more than 4 fully modeled characters. In the end, I do think my favorite ends up being Pa, simply because he's the most endearing. I think it could have been Scott if he were more fleshed out, but I gotta take what I'm given, and Pa is a lovable little guy. My least favorite is unfortunately Debbie. She does almost nothing apart from dole out chores, just like Rose before her. Shadow of the Water's Edge has one of the strongest casts in the whole series, but I don't think any of them especially shine individually, in my own humble opinion. For most of the game, I think that Rentaro is my favorite character, but the absolutely wild heel turn that he takes near the end of the game is just very out of character for him. So I think in the end, I just have to go with Yumi. She has a very strong sense of self and of personal style. She's an entrepreneur, she's fun, and she gives me fun bento puzzles. What's not to love? My least favorite character here is Takai, and she's honestly one of my least favorite characters in the whole series. To reiterate and be super clear, I don't think that she's a bad character. I think that the familial dynamic between the characters in this game is very compelling, and she's an integral part in that dynamic. This is just purely on a personal level, and on a personal level, I am not someone who places much importance on tradition, and I find it deeply upsetting when things are forced upon people purely for the sake of tradition. That's not reasoning that I align with at all. Listen, I fully recognize that I'm commenting on a culture I'm not part of. It's super not my place to criticize it, but that's just the reason I personally dislike her as a character. Also, her voice acting is terrible and her dialogue is such a slog to get through. Please hire Japanese voice actors for Japanese roles. It's not that hard. The Captive Curse, once again, has one of my favorite casts in the series, but my obvious favorite character here is Lucas. Carl's also great, but Lucas is one of my favorite characters in the whole series. I love playing games with him. I love helping him prank Carl. I love the way that Nancy becomes a source of safety for him when he's scared of the monster. He's just very fun to interact with, an incredibly endearing character. I would die for that kid. My least favorite character is Marcus. Yes, I'm going for the phone characters because I love this cast. Most people, I think, name Renata or Anya as their least favorite character, but I think they're both really fun. Renata's stories are really interesting, and she's very snarky, and Anya's fun to gossip with. So my least favorite is Marcus. I'm sick of calling him and being told that he doesn't care about what I'm doing. Why am I working for you if you don't care what I'm doing? Listen, at this rate, maybe I will just let your ex-girlfriend scare everyone away from your castle. I kind of like her better than you. Alibi and Ashes has a couple of very strong characters and a couple that are just kind of so-so. But my favorite is Alexei. I find the parallels between his history and the current plot that Nancy is going through very compelling. Plus, I always just love a character that has some snark to them, and anyone who loves George is a friend of mine. Shout out to Deirdre though, because I won't get another chance to shout her out, and she is a very fun character here. My least favorite character here is Tony. She's passive-aggressive and clearly meant to be a love-to-hate-her character, but the fact that she largely feels like the least essential character to the mystery mostly means I just kind of end up disliking her. No love, hate, just hate. Tomb of the Lost Queen is one of the weaker character games for me, so I'm just going with the character that I enjoy interacting with the most, and that is our resident toxic man, Dylan. Bro's just out here trying to get his coin, and I respect the hustle. My least favorite here is Abdullah, which is perhaps ironic given my stance on toxic men and what I just said. I mostly just see him as a worse version of Scott from Trail of the Twister, and I already thought Scott was a little undercooked as a character. I mean, at least he was just disgruntled and worn down by his work. Abdullah is just obnoxious and full of himself. The most interesting thing about the cast of The Deadly Device for me is the fan theory that each of them was written to portray different neurodivergent identities. I haven't played this one as many times as I have some other ones, so I'm not totally sure how well that theory holds up, but it's interesting nonetheless, and I think holds with my opinion that the cast as a whole is more interesting than they are individually. All that said, my favorite character, clear and away, is Ryan. I know it's kind of a stock pick. Some people find her a little irritating while most people love her. She is definitely a smidge like 2010's lol random, but I enjoy her nonetheless. My least favorite character here is maybe a bit of a cop-out, and that's Victor. I just don't like how obvious he is as the culprit. It's weird that he's fully modeled at the beginning of the game, and blatantly obvious when he shows up at the lab. It just makes it less fun as a mystery. I always see the Ghost of Thornton Hall cast as a slightly less compelling version of the Shadow at the Water's Edge cast. I think once again, having more than the standard 4 characters just spread them a smidge too thin. The characters as a cast have a pretty compelling dynamic, but as individual characters, they're a little weak. If you just gave each of them just like a little slight zhuzh, they could all be great characters. For example, Wade is a compelling character with a really interesting backstory, but you talk to him once and he shows you around the graveyard, and after that, he's just a human spirit box, basically. He just exists to play ghost noises. That's literally all the man does, stands in the graveyard and plays you ghost sounds. I say all that to come to the obvious conclusion that Harper is the most interesting character and also my favorite character. She's eccentric and quirky and interesting to talk to, and she has an incredibly compelling backstory as well. My least favorite is probably Clara. She's fine. I just find her the least compelling, And obviously, I'm not a huge fan of her trying to conceal the wrongdoings of her family. This is another of my unpopular opinions, but The Silent Spy has one of my absolute favorite casts, and both Alec and Zoe are two of my favorite characters in the entire series. So much so that for the first time, I'm actually not gonna choose just one. I'm choosing both of them. Sorry, not sorry. I've always found Alec compelling because he's very blatantly morally gray. He wants to come across as very shady, but I always found him just inherently trustworthy. I immediately really enjoyed him. And of course, toxic men, blah, 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 we know the shtick. And of course, Queen Zoe. I even love her as Bridget. And of course, I love her as Zoe too. She's very funny to interact with regardless of which person she's being at the moment. I love her character design as Zoe. I love her snark. I know it's a silly premise, but I desperately want that sequel where she and Alec are trying to locate his sister. I would be so here for it. As for least favorite character, we all know who it is. Ewan is the clear weak point in this game. His culprit motive is literally just because I can, and he's constantly purposely vague because of spy stuff. I love this game. I love the other characters. Ewan sucks. On my initial notes for Shattered Medallion, I simply wrote, favorite character, disqualified. Least favorite character, everyone. Truly, I couldn't say it better if I tried. To attempt to put forth some effort into this choice, I guess I'll say Sunny June is my favorite character because I like his hair. Purple and blue is fun. And Kiri is my least favorite character because I still don't understand her culprit motive. That's the best I can give you for this game. I hope that is sufficient. The characters in Labyrinth of Lies all feel very distinct, but I don't think that necessarily makes them good characters. My favorite, of course, is Grigor. I feel like that might be obvious given my enjoyment of quippy characters and toxic men. At this point, I'll just take the most fun character to talk to because the characters just are not as compelling as they once were. Speaking of toxic men, my least favorite character is Thanos. I'd definitely be willing to reconsider since I've only played this game once, but in that playthrough, I talked to him exactly one single time, exhausted every dialogue option. He responded to each with one word, 2 words, a growl, and then I never needed to interact with him ever again. Not compelling, totally useless. Please use your words, you're a human being. I think. Sea of Darkness gets us right back on track because I think I enjoy all of the characters in this game. In the end, I do think I have to choose Gunnar as my favorite because I find his backstory really compelling, and I find his gruff exterior and the way that he eventually warms to Nancy very endearing. Honorable mention, of course, goes to Dagny because we know I love a quippy, snarky character. Maybe this is a cop-out, but for my least favorite character, I'm gonna say that it's Magnus. I just like the rest of them too much to choose them. As for my reasoning, bro sits in an ice cave the entire game. That's so boring of him. Midnight in Salem. Yikes. We've once again hit a game where I'm actually kind of offended that I'm supposed to choose a favorite character. I could choose Lauren because I like her character design and her herbal shop. I love helping with the little herbs. I could also choose May because I'm always at least a little endeared to that broody emo teenager. But I think I'm actually going to go ahead and choose the Hardy Boys because I haven't picked them yet, and I don't want to honor any of the other characters by picking them. And I like the Hardy Boys designs in this game, so I'm choosing them. Listen, I wanted to choose them at some point, and I've never gotten the chance. My least favorite character is Judge Danforth. How incompetent do you have to be to lock yourself in your own office? And you're a judge? I think that's plenty reason to choose him. My favorite character in Mystery of the Seven Keys is probably Radek. I think he and Marek have the most compelling backstories in the game, and between the two, I think my favorite is Radek. As far as my least favorite character here, in my review that I did after playing the game, I vaguely said that I thought that some of the characters would be better served mashed together, and I want to go into detail into that here. Firstly, I think that Patrizia and Adela should not have been 2 different characters. I think they could have just as easily been one character, and probably would have been more interesting because of it. I also could see Vladena and Oskar being one character instead of two separate characters, but that one's a little bit vaguer for me. And I think that I do have to end up going with Vladena as my least favorite character. Did we really need the most openly antagonistic character to be the villain? Did we need it to be that obvious? To be fair, in many of the other games, it's the most openly pleasant character who is the culprit, so I guess a middle ground would be nice. Whew. So those are my favorite and least favorite characters in each game in the Nancy Drew series. I think at some point I would still like to do some sort of like top 10 ranking of my favorite and least favorite characters, but that always feels like so much more pressure to me, whereas this format is a much more casual way to discuss my favorite and least favorite characters in the series. If you'd like to hear what I end up yapping about next, please follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're currently listening on. I am cooking up some stuff on several of my niches at the moment. I've got some Nancy Drew in the works, I've got some jet lag in the works, some Danganronpa. It's a variety. Drag Race, Big Brother, honestly a lot of stuff. You can also follow me on Instagram if you're so inclined. The link is below. I have been inactive on there much like I have on here, but I'm trying to get back in the swing of posting casually on there and posting semi-regularly again on here. So if you want to follow me or subscribe to me on any of the platforms I just mentioned, I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much for listening to me as I made some niche references.